world. It is morning, afternoon, or evening, and it doesn't matter because it's AlgoFest, and no matter what time zone you're in. And I am the real Monty Allen, and I am your crypto nerd.
And I'm Cooper Daniels, and I'm from the Recoup. And welcome back to AlgoFest 2021.
I love seeing those graphics. The AlgoFest team, they were solid.
Yeah, looks brilliant. Yeah, really excited, and thanks for having me, guys, as well.
Thanks for coming on. Did we lose Coop? Did we lose audio for you? I see you take your earbuds out.
No. We can't hear you.
No, we lost you. That's all right. It's the last stream of the day. Maybe something was bound to happen. I switched to whiskey like four interviews ago, so this will.
Oh, you started to drink? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Welcome back.
Oh, so you've been drinking?
No, I've not been drinking. I stuck with water, but I went from coffee to water. I'm thinking about a Steinlager right now, though. Do they have Steinlager there, Cotton?
Yeah, look, they do. I must say, I don't drink, so I think last time I had a drink was about 10 years ago. I wasn't used to it, and I had one drink, and it really made me realize why I don't do it. I think it was like one beer, and I was struggling to walk. So that was the end of my drinking career. It was very short lived.
Good move. All right. Well, let's talk about some crypto stuff, huh?
Yeah, let's do it. So we have Michael Cotton from Algomint here today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So why don't you just give us a little rundown about Algomint and your background a little bit,
Yeah, for sure. So Algomint, for those that aren't aware, we were really focused on bridging equity into the Algorand ecosystem. I guess we had two thoughts here. Number one, we obviously wanted to build a bridge, and we wanted to bridge equity, but we also wanted to make sure we were building at the right time to line up with the rest of the ecosystem growing. Because in reality, we really did need to see these fundamental foundational blocks in order for the ecosystem to thrive. And Algomint was one of those pieces. I think the DEXs, launch pads, trustless funds management, all these other elements that are now also coming into play are the perfect culmination of everything we need. But for Algomint, the focus was really on building that equity bridge in and out of the Algorand ecosystem and creating that interoperability. The actual background to myself, to probably go a little bit deeper. So we built one of the first projects on Algorand called Mel Gold, which was all around digitizing precious metals. Beyond that, what we sort of really were focusing on as well is actually creating giving gold the ability to become a currency once more. And that was a real core focus for us. And in order to do that, we really needed to make it help achieve velocity. But that also included digitizing the entire supply chain. So bringing a lot of efficiencies to the supply chain, which is where about probably 99% of the Mel Gold businesses at the moment. We're partnered with businesses like MKS PAMP, which is the largest gold trader in the world, Perth Mint, Heraeus, the fourth biggest in the world. And then the reason for the bridge coming about was we actually started to say, all right, we want the gold to be global. We want the gold to be chain agnostic. We want our home to be in Algorand, but we also want the gold to be able to move throughout the crypto ecosystem. And that's when we really started looking at the bridge concept. And then working with Algorand, that quite quickly turned from let's build a bridge for Mel Gold to let's build a bridge for the ecosystem. And that's how we ended up where we are today.
Just real quick on gold. So I've always wondered, I was like, if we could tokenize gold and then actually you could go somewhere and like redeem it. Is that something that you see ever happening or?
Yeah, completely, Coop. And that was really the intention. Like we were really fortunate. So my history is in the gold industry. I started when I was 18, very, very humble, small gold beginnings. A lot of convincing people that, they should give me a go and give me a shot because I was new and didn't have a lot of reputation in the industry. And also the industry is very opaque, very much an old boys industry. So breaking into that industry was really difficult, but the really big benefit of, I sort of always term it as it's gold adopting blockchain, not blockchain adopting gold. And the reason that's the right way around is understanding the industry intricately is the key to really unlocking gold's value on chain. So that ability to redeem is definitely a part of the roadmap. You can currently redeem in Australia physically, so you can both redeem and digitize. So you can bring gold in and actually convert it into Algorand tokens, and you can actually come back and then pick up your gold once more. But the plans is for that to spread further, and you'd be able to do that in multiple locations around the world. And the extension of that is that where we sort of see these gold individual businesses, there's thousands of gold retailers. They're actually really well equipped to be the alternative bank branch, the independent, physically distributed alternative bank branches for the digital currency ecosystem, because they're used to dealing in AMLs, they're used to dealing in KYCs, they're used to dealing in small margins, they're generally independent, they like alternative assets because they've been dealing in precious metals for so long. So they're extremely well equipped to actually become these on-ramps and off-ramps for the crypto ecosystem. So the actual Mel Gold system doesn't just allow them to trade in gold and precious metals, both physically and digitally, but completely opens them up to offer full OTC bank-style options with cryptocurrencies. So one of the first major retailers launching is in Australia. It's called Authero. It's specifically an alternative asset retailer. So they'll be doing crypto, precious metals, alternative assets, on-ramp, off-ramp, full service center, where you can come learn about crypto, learn about Algorand, come on board, get a wallet, start transacting, and then go off and be fully equipped. And if you have problems or issues, you can come back and get help at the service center again, and then off you go, you're off and running.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, that just this idea that you could, because with crypto, you could actually, have pieces of gold, and that whole thing where you can't spend your gold, and it's, all this stuff, it just goes away. It's kind of like bringing an actual way you could bring back a gold standard.
Completely. And I think what it also really opens up is, if you've got dollars, you can earn interest. You can actually do things with those dollars that deliver a return. And I think digitizing gold and other precious metals also opens up that opportunity. So the ability to earn yield on gold and precious metals is, just around the corner. As we see the DeFi ecosystem build, we're really focused on that concept. And what's quite interesting with the Algomint is it'll have a gold basket, which basically will have several different types of blockchain gold that you can actually wrap into a single standardized gold token. Why that's quite interesting is these basket ideas for Algomint also allow the ability to swap. So if, for example, you've got Paxos Gold, which is one of the really large gold tokens in the world, which doesn't really allow redemptions on small scale or doesn't allow digitization, you can actually swap into Meld Gold, or you can swap back out, which I think is quite interesting. So people who want to access physical in Australia that have Paxos can swap into Meld via the basket and then go and withdraw the gold, or they could digitize and swap into Paxos inside the basket. So it'll open up a lot of interesting opportunities in that sense as well.
Gold liquidity where it was not easily accessed before.
Exactly. And the actual digitization of the supply chain, I know I'm ranting about Mel Gold here, and from the preface of
yeah, it's cool.
The key that most of the work, like 99% of the work in the product, was actually in streamlining the gold supply chain. So what that essentially looks like is what would traditionally happen is the supply chain is really quite long in gold. And if you're at the end of the supply chain, it goes through a whole string of hands with a whole lot of work and a whole lot of expense to get from one end to the other. And what we did is we streamlined that entire supply chain. We actually map it from the moment the smallest dealer in the world says, hey, I've got some gold to sell. We actually automatically map the most efficient, cost-effective, fastest route through the entire global supply chain to get to the end result. Pre-hedge, pre-insure, book all the logistics, do the entire process start to finish, and give them a whole lot of additional margin. But what to think about with that additional margin is we're actually reducing the spread dramatically. And that's really where gold can start to become a currency once more, because when the spread's large, it makes it unviable to transact in. When the spread's really small, exactly. When that spread's really small, buying a coffee with gold becomes really, really possible. And I guess that really does overflow into this concept of wrapping Bitcoin too. We're removing the spread in terms of gas fees, where all of a sudden you could buy a coffee, you could pay your electricity bill, you could do an atomic swap in BTC to Algo. All those kinds of functions really start opening up with Algorand.
Yeah, the familiarity, the comfort zone, and for better or for worse, people have a comfort zone. If they think about cryptocurrency, they think about Bitcoin. At least a large portion of the population does. But if they could take that name, that brand, but put it on the Algorand blockchain and get all of those benefits, then we might be one step closer to mass adoption there.
Mm-hmm. And look, the other interesting piece that we've been working on the climate trade guys, the same guys that made Algorand blockchain negative, with the intention of making a truly green BTC when it bridges into Algorand. So that's fully in swing. We're working with the guys to make that happen. So every BTC, the plan is for every BTC on Algorand to be a fully green BTC. And when I say fully green, once it's on the network is already carbon negative. But it has a previous history of a carbon footprint. So the intention is actually to wipe its history. So not just are we nullifying or voiding its complete carbon footprint prior, but then it's living on a carbon negative blockchain. So it can truly be a carbon negative asset, which I think is really, really interesting.
Wow.
That's a lot of energy to pay back. Right.
Yeah. There's a lot to make up for.
Yeah. All right. Let's stay on this topic of wrap BTC, because Daisy, if you do, and for those of you watching, just quick shout out for Daisy if you do, because that guy has been all over the place all day in every single chat, relaying questions for us. So huge help all day long, and it's been like 12 hours. So and it's not like we're paying. so Daisy, if you do, thank you. So the question is, if BTC is legal tender in El Salvador, right? That news just broke, and now they're building their blockchain infrastructure with Algorand. How far is it a leap to go from, hey, they have Bitcoin, what if we just have Go BTC? Like, what's...
Look, completely. I think it's not a big leap at all. I think there's some interesting questions that I've been sort of pondering, which is, is it going to be a co-chain? Is it going to be on mainnet? I think that's sort of an interesting piece that we probably don't know the answers to yet, but not a leap at all. I think it makes a huge amount of sense. I think it'll be a really great example, especially, with their position on BTC. It makes complete sense. And then if you take the idea that we're talking about a green BTC as well, I think we're really removing all those barriers that currently exist. And I find in a lot of conversations, I have a lot of conversations with people about crypto, obviously, and a lot of people who aren't, involved in crypto. I've had a long history in the traditional market, so I get a lot of people, especially from that space, who are intrigued. And generally, one of the first things they talk about is the carbon footprint. So I think removing that it almost just smashes that first wall down that a lot of people see as this resistance barrier, or sometimes I feel like it's an excuse as well. An excuse, no, look, it's got a terrible environmental impact. So I think removing these excuses then make it that leap just get smaller and smaller for something like El Salvador to take to adopt Go BTC.
No, that's cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, no doubt.
Think about. Yeah.
What about NFTs? Are we going to see some wrapped NFTs? Take us an ETH NFT and bring it on over.
Yeah, look, it's a good question. Look, we're not planning to just yet. That's not to say we aren't. There's two really, and look, there's two reasons for it. Number one, there is additional complexity to wrapping an NFT, and I think there's additional responsibility. For example, if it's on Ethereum, where is the hosting done? Is it IPFS? How long is that hosting hosted for? What is the real long-term value outlook for that NFT? Whereas I think whoever wraps it across chain, the dream scenario is it's being wrapped and reinforced. So if it exists on Algorand, you have a guarantee. It's almost like an additional layer of certainty to that NFT. And I think that's a really important piece to be covered. There's two really good projects coming in the NFT space. One's out of Europe, and they're actually building out a new standard for NFTs. So, essentially like your Ethereum style NFT standards as an ASA. So it'll be a new type of ASA, if you will. And then another one as well called Originals Only, which is doing something quite similar. And it'll look at a whole nother set of capability, whether it be bridging with the intention of, because I think what we'll see a wave of is we'll see a wave of creators in the NFT space. I'm going to ramble again. I'm sorry, guys. So forgive me. We're going to see a real wave of people in the NFT space who have currently issued things that didn't really understand the tech. I would say there's a huge number of NFT creators out there who just have no idea about the technology. They just know NFTs are doing great and they should get on the bandwagon. Yeah. 100%. So I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a lot of creators all of a sudden want to be able to create options to bridge to a new blockchain, but almost bridge permanently. So I think products like Originals Only that are looking at this concept of saying, hey, if you are Marvel Comics and you've issued NFTs on Ethereum and realize actually that wasn't the best choice for you, we'll actually offer a function to allow you to permanently bridge those NFTs and offer your customers a solution to the problems they have in your products to bridge onto a new standardization on Algorand permanently. So it's this permanent, almost a burn function for those NFTs. So it's not that we don't want to do it, but I think there's a lot more consideration and thought that projects like Originals Only are doing that are probably needed to do that effectively and properly.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, you could do it, but somebody else is already on the case and they might do it quicker and better. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Yeah.
All right. I hear you. We got a question here, and I'm not sure. I might not understand the technology aspect of this, or I don't know. We'll ask the question and see. So, are you guys providing means of unminting already approved assets so that we get our algo tokens back? And I thought that just involved a burn, and I didn't realize there were algo tokens involved.
I think that's probably what they're thinking of, which is just unwrapping, which is correct. So it would only have algo tokens involved if you were wrapping algo. Yeah. We haven't got a plan for that just yet. I'm absolutely certain there's going to be some kind of yield vault where you'll get a synthetic algo. That's definitely coming from somewhere. I think especially if there's can be automation around governance staking and governance participation with a synthetic algo version. I think that'll definitely become a reality. But in terms of that unwrapping, most definitely you can come in and out, wrap, unwrap, go for your life as much as you want. So feel free to do it a lot because, the fees go to the Algomint token. So go back and forth all day.
Go ahead and convert.
Exactly right. Yeah.
We have a question here bouncing back real quick to Meld. Saying Meld has quite the portfolio. Will all of these projects eventually make their way to Algorand?
Really, yeah, great question. So we, and this is more sort of Mel Ventures, and so Mel Ventures, I guess we have a really strong focus on Algorand investment. We do invest outside of Algorand, but in a lot of those cases, those investments are with a line of sight on bridging that product into Algorand. So. Though I can't say with complete certainty that every project will come to Algorand, that's definitely our goal, is to bring as many of them as we can. We have one brilliant project called D-Hedge, which is an awesome project on Ethereum, amazing team. It's actually now building an Algorand called Prismatic. It's going to be an awesome project. So it was a really great example of winning a project over to Algorand, which is going to be really exciting to bring some of those great teams that have built fantastic products elsewhere. And see a vote of confidence from them in building an Algorand. Mm-hmm. But, the other side of that is we get great products. So I can't guarantee it, but I can assure you, we're very open and honest and whenever we make investments and, all of those conversations are, yeah, we really love the product. We'd like to invest. We're going to bug you about coming to Algorand fairly regularly. So right. It's kind of like the hang up of dealing with us. If you're not on Algorand now, prepare to be bugged for years until you do.
Right, that's a good move, though. So I think before we went live, or maybe just the beginning of our conversation, we were talking about the population and just the density of the the crypto community in Australia. And I'm wondering if you've got feelings on the the governance and the regulations that are available and some of the clarity that you have there versus the United States, and does that propel your community, your area, or more projects drawn there? And do you run into issues like when you're dealing globally, with regulations? It's so murky.
Yeah, look, I think Australia isn't actually that clear. I think a lot of people feel like it's clear because there is such a huge builder community here. Naturally in Australia, I think a lot, we've often been, not a lot of people are aware of this, but a lot of technology gets tested here. So we got things like FPOS before most other countries in the world. Like we're considered like this microcosm of a sample test of a lot of other parts of the world.
You're on an island. Yeah. Who are you?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. So we often get tested. So we often actually see a lot of things before almost anywhere else in the world. So it's a really common practice. So naturally, it means we have been quite fast with picking up new ideas. Quite open to innovation, especially in the technology side. So it's really fostered this really strong building community and this really strong crypto community. I think on the legal side, though, it hasn't been clear, but that hasn't scared off the community is probably the better way to put it. What the government has been very, very clear about is that crypto is not a financial product. Though governments will very often change their minds, they've also been very clear or clear enough to say that their main concern is with retail mum and dad investors getting burnt. So I think that they're the two things that we feel certainty in. So, most products build with those two things in mind and sort of rely on those two elements. We've also got massive projects out of Australia that kind of act as, the canary down the mine, if you will. So Synthetics is a great one. They're an incredible team, built an amazing product. Huge product, huge business. Thorchain, Rune, another huge product out of Australia. So there's kind of also these, almost like these barriers that there's these huge organizations in the crypto space that have had a huge success that are sort of leading the charge on being the canaries down the mine. And a lot of us have been really fortunate to sort of run behind them and have them, sort of bulldozing ahead, and we get to sort of follow in their footsteps and go, okay, well, they survived. All right, let's keep going, keep building. But, we do still see a lot of legal structures for Australian crypto businesses based overseas. That's still really common. But, I think Australia has been naturally open to this kind of thing more than potentially other countries, which has been really useful. I think we're going to see more regulation. Anyone who's heard me talk about this before, it's probably going to be fairly repetitive for you. But in reality, my main hope is it's the right regulation. I still say that I think the crypto and blockchain community needs to be mindful of what we think that regulation is going to look like. And we need to come up with our own solutions that we think are probably something that's more suitable to the space. Because I think we're all in the best position to really understand what will work and what will make sense and what is probably fair and more aligned with where we think the world should be. And I think we need to take initiative to building out those kind of products that deliver those answers that sort of bridge that gap between maybe what the authorities want to see and where the market currently is.
Is Algomint going to release some like documentation, like a light paper or a white paper anytime soon?
Yeah, we've actually had a light paper. We probably our preference is the fragmented sounds negative, but we prefer that broken down documentation style. So we've got a Git books or Git docs going up shortly with a new website going live. And that'll provide a lot more insight. So though it won't be one consistent paper, it'll be the contents of the paper, glossary style broken down. So yes is the short answer, Coop, but it just might not be in the format everyone's expecting.
Got it.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not sure, like our community, for whatever reason, we just expect that now. But, in large part, you're already doing stuff, we already know what your plan is, and you're doing some of that stuff already. So that seems kind of ass backwards, but it's still good to have, though, I guess. As far as the community goes, they want something that somewhat tangible to print up or something and say, okay, here it is.
Completely, and we definitely get it. So that should be available imminently, which will be great, and it'll be expanded on a lot as time goes on as well as we iterate. Because V1, like a lot of what we built for V1 was with the intention of being in market to help all the other projects coming to market as well. So we're really conscious of that sort of timeline. Testnet is literally going live tomorrow, which is really exciting. So which is great news. So we'll have more about Testnet. We've got a presentation on Testnet as well coming up as well on the 6th. So there's it's all about to sort of start happening. Audit's about halfway through, so we've got another couple of weeks left of audit. And then we're aiming for mainnet towards the end of the month, all going well. So to line up with things like TinyMan coming for launch as well. So our plan is to sort of be in market and be a part of what's happening and support projects like TinyMan and make sure we're there and a part of the community.
Is there a lot of communication behind the scenes between, various projects? How close is, all the ASA projects and, various Algorand, items that go on? I mean, you guys all get together? Is there a secret meeting somewhere? We gotta have a. They probably now that you say it, they seem like they're secret. They're not intended to be secret. More in just the sense, it's just a handful of us that attend on, in varying parties. But Algorand is probably the most collaborative builder community. I think, being involved, both AJ and I have been involved a lot in Ethereum and other ecosystems. And Algorand's definitely the most collaborative, which I love. I think it's the perfect scenario because in reality, we all want the same goal, which is to build out incredible technology on Algorand and really open up opportunities for the broader community and the broader world. So thankfully, we're all fairly aligned on that. And so I talk to most projects, almost weekly, sometimes every day. So there's definitely plenty happening. The brilliance of the collaboration is it allows for a new style of growth, which is a real necessity. So we really need to create strong incentives. If you guys have heard me talk about this before, I talk about sticky equity a lot, which is, we need to build really strong incentives. We need to get people into the ecosystem with those incentives. And then we need to make sure they're using the products, loving the products, and they work well so that they stick.
and that's really the magic formula for us. So by combining efforts, a really great example is Algomint's working with Pact, which is the other AMM coming to market, Tinyman, AlgoDex, working with Chris from Reach and his decks with the idea that we want to create these really strong reward programs so that people will be really strongly incentivized to come into Algorand. Because at the moment, I still find there's a lot of people in other ecosystems that don't really know anything about it, don't even realize how great the tech is. And the biggest draw card for them will be that they can gain value above and beyond what they are now. Even equal value would be enough for them to go, okay, all right, I'll give it a try. It's worth me sort of exploring. But having that really strong value proposition, I think, is what we can use to really leverage people out of other areas and bring them across into Algorand.
Yeah, because we've been asking all day, what people see as the trigger for mass adoption, and is that kind of what you're seeing? Is that what you're?
Yeah, well, we kind of have two audiences. We've got the currently initiated and we've got the uninitiated into blockchain. Currently initiated, in reality, 99% of it is not in Algorand. So that's the brilliance of that community, is that they are already keen. They already understand the tech. It's just a really simple process for them to come and join into the Algorand ecosystem and participate. So they're a really easy win. If we can get them to bridge across, we know that they will do so. They can do it, with enough incentive and the right channels. You could see hundreds of people bridging across fairly quickly. The uninitiated is quite a different scenario. I think the uninitiated will be more interested in the overall fundamentals of the ecosystem and where they can find easy on-ramps, where they can feel safe and secure, which is really so much a part of what Algorand stands for. It's meant to be the safe, secure DeFi and the safe, secure blockchain. In terms of media mentions, it's got the highest positive rating in terms of media mentions in the world out of every blockchain, which is a really great sign of how there is already a positive sentiment about Algorand. Anyone you talk about Nobel Peace Prize winners, you talk about Silvio Micali and his incredible resume. You add in there people like, they've got 2 contributions to the NIST's quantum resilience scheme. It's genuinely the greatest. It feels quite daunting if you try to go, all right, let's compare Algomint's resume and now let's compare Algorand's. Like, oh man, we need to go solve some world problems and win some awards to get back in the game here. But they definitely, if anyone's going to look at a blockchain and go, okay, I can feel comfortable with this, and in particular, if we start talking about global adoption, where we're going to see the ability to people to enter via a local institution really simply and easily to be a part of the crypto ecosystem, then something like Algorand represents what will be acceptable to anyone in the world as a secure, safe technology to utilize. And I think so it's quite a different scenario. I think the incentives are less exciting. I think once they're in the ecosystem, they will love the fact that there's great incentives. But I think initially it'll be these other sort of elements that'll bring them into the space.
Getting those people into the ecosystem and out of their silos seems to be the issue, because we get into echo chambers. My friends who are, they're following NFTs, and their entire stream is ETH, and their YouTube stuff is ETH, and their friends are, they're talking about ETH, and I come in and they're like, "What are you talking about, Monty? Get out of here with that." But they never see any of my videos or your stuff. They don't hear you speak because it doesn't show up on their feed. And so breaking through that barrier, that seems to be like the first step, just awareness, right? Getting that information out to them. And so, the videos that Coop and I do, and what AlgoPulse is aiming to do. And, there's a few other folks who kind of get that information out, but in large part, the people that watch our stuff, they're already algotics. They're you know what I mean?
I completely agree. Oh, sorry, Coop, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, and to your point also, like when people kind of are like something better, they're like, well, we respect Algorand. It's never like, oh, Algorand's, it's rarely Algorand's a scam or shit or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
Look, for sure. I actually think things like the Arrington paper has been brilliant. And this sort of ties into AlgoPulse as well, but the Arrington paper was brilliant to point to. Anyone who's like, I don't understand, tell me why it's great, read the paper. And the guys have done a really brilliant job since then as well of really making the case at a high level in terms of making the case with actual other VCs, with actual major players in the space. DeFi Alliance, for example, getting Algorand into conversation with DeFi Alliance, and they have got Venue One and Tiny Man into DeFi Alliance. Like these were brilliant moves. And I think it's the start because, the guys from DeFi Alliance, everyone in the crypto space listens to them. And sort of, it's almost building a bridge of information, as much as Algomint might be building a token bridge. These bridges of information are really important as well. I think where AlgoPulse is really fantastic is creating consumable or digestible information that's well constructed. If you look at university courses or any sort of educational courses, they're really designed to be formatted in this way that it's the right order of information consumption to get the right result. And in reality, that takes a lot of thought and a lot of consideration, and also thinking about the different types of customers. So in terms of something like AlgoPulse, being able to have these funnels where you can point your aunt who knows absolutely nothing about crypto, and she can go through this funnel that actually helps her learn about things like Algorand in a really digestible way, where she can understand the fundamentals of the technology and not get caught up in the complexities, I think is brilliant, all the way through to, okay, now there's a funnel for an Ethereum maxi for them to understand, you're happy to go to a layer 2. With that fundamental thought process, why in the world would you not think about a layer 1 that gives you everything a layer 2 does, plus so much more? The leap is not actually that big. You need to take a second look at what this technology is going to do. And I think those kinds of things will be brilliant, because I know for me, I often said to someone who I know really, really, really well the other day said to, I didn't know you were in blockchain. And I've been doing it for a very long time. But, I said to them, the difficult part, especially years ago, you run into someone, I was about to say on a plane, that's less likely these days, but you run into someone on a plane in passing, or, at the cafe picking up a coffee or something. You can't just say I'm doing crypto or blockchain. You actually have to sit them down for 30 minutes and explain what you're doing, so they don't just go into this crazy thought process of what you might be doing. And things like AlgoPulse will be brilliant to be able to say, hey, go here, go read this, watch this web series. I think that kind of stuff will be brilliant.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the education for the community, I think, is important. We got half a dozen other questions here. Should we tackle a few of these?
I'm like...
Monty, if it's okay, one other thing I was going to mention too, our the things like D-Hedge and Prismatic. The D-Hedge team, one of the founders is Henrik Anderson from Apollo Capital, one of the most respected crypto VCs in Australia, a really strong team. But the reason we've had put so much effort into those kind of projects as well is because, again, they're signals to the market. When someone like the D-Hedge team come to build an Algorand, there's a vote of faith there that has a ripple effect. And so Arrington have been the same. Arrington putting out that paper was a ripple effect of a lot of people who respect them all of a sudden go, okay, we need to really think about this and take a second look. So, we've had a really strong focus on trying to create those connections and those relationships, because it does have a ripple effect that's hard to achieve without having that credibility that people like Apollo Capital and Henrik have. On the other side, things like Authero, we invested in Authero. It's the idea of being able to have someone walk into a local business and understand and learn about crypto and make their first transaction and actually have someone walk them through it, I think is going to be an important part of this next stage of adoption. I think we really are thinking a lot about this adoption and the different types of adoption, and we are very much engaged and putting our money where our mouth is and trying to make those things happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the borrowing authority from VCs or well-respected individuals or groups, will play out well for us overall in the industry.
Completely,
for sure. All right, so we've got I don't know 3 or 4 questions here, but I'm just go through the most recent one, so I don't have to scroll. So how will the custody of wrapped assets work with Algomint?
So there's
I'm curious about that too.
Yeah, so Copper, and I don't know how familiar everyone is with Copper. So we started working with Copper quite a long time ago when Algorand started dealing with them and started working with them about becoming an official custodian for Algorand. So we started working with them. They're the custodian for the assets. That's not the long-term goal. The long-term goal is on-chain lockups. We were kind of, and this probably ties back to what I was saying before, we were very conscious of not wanting to come to market in 6 months, wanting to come to market and actually help the ecosystem and help bootstrap the ecosystem early. So V1 is more custodial, which in reality, I think was probably really the right choice for us as well, because I think coming up with a really strong, secure, robust system around on-chain lockups, I think is something that we really want to take a lot more time to ensure we get right. We're really conscious of not just getting it right and strong and secure, but it needs to be efficient and effective as well. So, initially it's custody with Copper. V2, or it might be V3, will be custodied on chain. So there's a fair bit of time between now and then, but so initially all with Copper Co.
All right, so we got a make do answer for right now, but it's not the long term. All right,
not the long term. Yeah,
got it. Next question here. So I don't think we asked this one about Mel Ventures, right? Mel Ventures has quite the portfolio. Oh, we did?
Yeah.
All right, let me go to the. Oh no, okay, we're caught up then on Daisy's list.
Yeah. So let's see.
If you like, guys, I'm happy to talk a bit about what else is coming as well. If
Yeah,
you
that's
want
what I
to
was
dive
gonna-
into that side.
Let's do that.
Did we run
Okay.
out of questions, Coop? How did
No,
that
we
happen?
didn't. I mean, there's other things on this list. So, like, are you guys providing means of unminting all? Oh, we already did that, didn't we?
Yeah.
I actually,
All right,
I think,
God, just go.
Let's talk.
I think,
Let's talk
I
about
think
what's coming.
I think I actually answered quite a few of them just in my normal answers as well.
Yeah.
So look, there's actually a lot coming. There's a lot of projects in stealth. So there's a lot of projects that you also don't hear about, which I know can be really frustrating for the community. But I think probably to sort of give some insight into why there's so many projects staying in stealth, they don't want the community to feel like nothing's happening, which when they're in deep build mode and they're really still constructing these projects and they're in, hardcore development mode, they don't have necessarily the right amount of time and the constant valuable information to probably feed the community in the way they would like. So that's why you do see a lot in stealth, but there is a huge, I sort of say the dam wall's getting ready to break, which is where we're going to see this huge range of products start to launch in the Algomint ecosystem. Some of them have been waiting for other things that were necessities in order to function. Some of them have only just gotten started. But we've got, 5 dexes now in the works in total.
Yeah.
We've got 3 out this year, potentially 4 out this year. We've got now a synthetics market and derivatives business coming as well, which is really exciting. I think it was a big piece that was needed because it actually opens up a lot of depth of liquidity, which opens up a lot of platform-to-platform transactions in volume, which doesn't seem like that big a deal, but it actually does create a lot of opportunity for a lot of other projects who could then say, okay, now I can actually build an Algomint because I needed that piece of the puzzle. We've got must be a dozen NFT projects, including some pretty major projects coming to market. We've got things like Prismatic, which is like the D-Hedge. We've got DexTF, which is also a similar project to D-Hedge in the trustless funds. We've got Sovereignty, which is the like Genosis Safe / Aragon governance white label program as well, which is going to be brilliant. I'm actually super excited for that because almost every project in Algorand needs that kind of functionality. Things like doing linear vesting, things like DAO management of funds, DAO voting, all that kind of stuff is a super needed piece. I think where that also layers in is even companies like Mel Ventures to govern our portfolio of assets and be able to use them from one central location and manage them from one wallet or safe location, I think will be really, really useful. And then we've got things like, we've got 3 oracles, we've got Razor, we've got Chainlink, and then we've got an Algorand specific oracle being built. We've got a predictions market being built in Venue 1. We've got, 4 lending platforms being built, including XBacked, which is the synthetic loans, like a MakerDAO, but with a really interesting, the way the product's actually been designed is really, really cool. This is probably one of the really big benefits of these new projects in Algorand. Borderless Capital guys described it to me really well the other day. They said it's like the whole blue ocean, and no one has set foot in it yet. And you sort of, the opportunities are abound, which is so true. So for something like XBacked, they've been able to look at the entire market of synthetic lending throughout the crypto ecosystem and go, okay, Liquidity's done this really well. How brilliant. All right, we'll take this piece. All right, MakerDAO's done this really brilliantly. That's great. We really
Steal
love
from
what
the
they've
best
done.
to make it your own. Yeah.
100%, and so then they've taken these fantastic pieces of all these puzzles and then sprinkled on their own magic dust and, built out this concept of a product that is brilliant. Like I'm particularly excited for that. I think it's going to be a real powerhouse in the ecosystem. And it's V1 is early next year, first quarter of next year. So there's going to be, there's just so much great stuff coming. We've got this 6 to 12 months of, of brilliant products launching. I think you'll hear a lot more about it. Algo Pulse will also be the Algo Pulse guys talking the other day. They were talking. I'm probably going to steal. They're up next, aren't they? I'm going to steal some of their thunder. But I really love the idea they've got this interactive timeline. So it's almost this Algorand timeline where you can look along the entire timeline and see what's launching, when it's launching, major releases, major iterations being launched. All that kind of stuff. I think is going to be brilliant, and it's a necessary insight I think the community wants.
We're going to hit like this critical mass, I've been calling it, where just all of these things start to come to fruition. And then they've laid out, you're talking about that timeline. And the way I see it is there's a lot of momentum being built up and kind of wound up in the community. And once this energy starts to get released, it'll just be self-propelling.
100%, and it's the exciting part is it's around the corner. I think a lot of us, that have been here for a long time, since the beginning, have been waiting. And I think too, on the ventures side, like we're seeing a lot more VCs talk to us about wanting to get into Algorand. These are VCs that have never invested in Algorand space before. That's a really brilliant sign. It's a really great sign that the sentiment in the market is that it's all happening and it's all about to come to fruition. Things like El Salvador are obviously brilliant signals of that. So I think we're starting the energy. I think most people can feel the energy is shifting. And I think Algorand's turn in the queue is coming up.
I mean, come on.
Right?
We're ending so strong. I mean, I feel like we're really ending this thing strong.
All right, one last question. We got about 6 minutes left here. There's two questions here. Let's ask this last one though. How do you anticipate people will use the wrapped coins at first? What's the use case?
Look, definitely the initial use case is going to be two things. Look, very first, because there's not going to be a huge extent of options. Straight off the bat is going to be trading on things like Tiny Man, which will create two things. One, it'll create the ability to own and trade in BTC, in a matter of seconds of transacting and insanely low fees, which will be brilliant. I think a lot of people will just want to own green BTC on Algo. I think it's almost a milestone in the Algorand ecosystem to own a green Bitcoin on Algorand. I think will be really brilliant. I think the other piece that opens up is that liquidity, being an LP and earning rewards and earning yield against those kind of assets. So even though it's in the one location that transacting will happen, it'll be, double-sided in terms of that use. I think very quickly after that, we'll start to see things like, we're talking to the guys at PayScript, who are a brilliant team, about being able to do transactions in Go assets. Where we're also talking to all the lending platforms about being able to leverage against Go assets. So take your Go BTC and get a loan in USDC or in Algo or other assets. So I think it'll be this sort of staggered as more projects come to fruition. And then I think as we see that really, really start to open up, that's when we'll start to see it change a lot. So I think this first 6 months will be this sort of staggered of trading on the DEXs, earning yield on the DEXs by being LPs with those assets, being able to make payments and do transactions in wrapped BTC and wrapped ETH. And then lastly, I think leverage against those assets.
Okay. It's just like there's so much coming. I just, it's one of those things that like you almost can't wait. And you don't want to put the cart before the horse. You need some liquidity. You need some folks to put it on a Tiny Man. You need some folks to make the conversion. You need that market there so that you can talk to the folks finance or the AlgoFi or all those folks to so there's uses and people are comfortable with it, huh?
Completely, and that's really what we're working a lot on at the moment is liquidity. It's an important part. It's useless if there's no liquidity. But thankfully, I think the incentive programs are working with guys at Pact and Tiny Man and what have you will create a lot of incentive to drive liquidity. So I think we'll actually see really strong liquidity for launch, and I think that'll maintain for long periods, which is brilliant because it's a part of that stickiness. Getting that stickiness means they got to get here, then it's got to be workable and usable and functional, and then we'll get people to stay and actually really understand why Algorand, why we have all been saying how incredible Algorand is.
Yeah, whatever they can do, we can do better, and here's why. Exactly. All right, I got it. What's this last one? Anything like the pre-PO coming to Algorand?
Not exactly like pre-PO. So to give you an insight of what pre-PO is essentially derivatives on like IPOs, ICOs. So a lot of the thinking is, and this is a real problem, I talk about this a lot internally. There's a real issue where normal people cannot get into seed rounds. Like it's impossible. It just can't be done. And I think it would be great to see people have access to that kind of investing. I think it being reserved for there's a really great reason why a lot of VCs do. Like a lot of people also don't realize that some of the VCs will invest 250,000 but commit 2.5 million to liquidity for 12 months. So it's not as black and white as it always seems, and not to mention they'll then be vested for 3 years. So it doesn't mean that if it gets opened up that retail investors will be happy with those terms, because it might actually not be something they're necessarily happy with to lock up these big chunks for long periods. But I think opening up that market is really sensible. Pre-PO actually does it in a synthetic form. So basically it's a predictions market on like Algomint listing, and you can actually essentially buy in synthetically at a seed round, which I definitely think is super interesting. I think what we'll probably more see is platforms like Prismatic open up seed managed funds. So the ability for normal people to actually get into managed funds that are doing seed investments. And I think that's going to become a reality on platforms like Prismatic. And I'm super excited for that, because I think getting into seed rounds is something it would be great to open up to, especially to long-time Algorand supporters, to actually then be a part of early investing in these new projects coming to market would be brilliant.
Yeah, and there's definitely a desire for that, right? There, we're clamoring for it. One of the main questions we get is how do we get in on these deals? How do we find out about them? What's the barrier to entry there? So
yeah, completely. And look, I'm sure half of this stuff I wasn't meant to say, and it's meant to all be secret. So don't tell anyone.
It's just between us.
Keep it under your hat.
All right, we have burned through 50 minutes, and it went through relatively fast there. I appreciate your energy, your willingness to share a ton of information with us, for carrying us at certain points during this conversation, because we ran out of AMA questions. But you've been absolutely brilliant. We wish nothing but the best for your projects, and I hope that you'll come back on the show. I think Coop and I are going to do some more of these like co-hosting deals, because it's working out incredibly well, and I hope you'll be back.
Oh, guys, I would love to. And thank you so much for having me and organizing, guys. We really appreciate everything you do for the Algorand community. And I look forward to it. I'm sure we're going to have many years of exciting Algorand discussions to come.
I love it.
Absolutely. All right. I think we might have one more AlgoFest interview here. So everybody out there watching, stay tuned. But we're going to end this one, and we'll start right back up.